Hi there everybody, this is Davey T from FSS Chat back with your another episode. Yes, me from Field Sports Scotland here is doing my weekly podcast and it is Wednesday evening, so I am just trying to do another one here, and I'm getting absolutely inundated with messages about deer management, nature restoration orders, the Scottish Government, and how the fiasco with Hamza Yusuf is maybe going to cause major problems in this side of things as well. So it's going to be a little bit of, I don't know, it's not going to be a political show, but we're going to talk a little bit more about it because it is really, really heating up over here. So we're going to talk about deer management as well tonight, and the various types of deer management, but what the Scottish Government really want deer management to look like in the future. And at the moment, because see, the thing about it is that could change, it really could change, especially after last week where the Butte House Agreement was kind of destroyed and the Green Party are now not equal share. And then Hamza Yusuf decides to quit and now they could be equal share again. It is very, very, very difficult. So I could see it getting worse before it getting better, because of the fact of the matter is, if the SNP do decide to speak to the Greens again and say we're going to do some power sharing again, well, I can pretty much say that they're going to have a bit more demands than what they had before. So watch your space in regards to that side of things. However, what have I been up to this week? Well, my week has been absolutely full. Sunday night, over the weekend, I have been running, doing my deer management stuff. I had a major big stock on Saturday. I had a couple of guests on one of the properties that I manage, and we were pretty much walking for 11 hours solid. We saw a heck of a amount of deer. I must have saw about 30, 40, maybe 50 deer. Not one of them was what the guest wanted. So we kept on going and kept on going. Started at 5 in the morning and we were still going at 7 p.m. that night. And I left the house at 12 o'clock, midnight. Arrived on site but just before 4 o'clock. And then kind of worked out that way. The guests arrived around about 20 to 6 and we started from there and carried on going for straight through to 7, and I never got back home until near enough midnight again. So it was relatively difficult. It was a hard night, but we got a blank, not because we didn't see deer or couldn't get on deer. It was because of the fact we were not the right deer that the guest wants, and sometimes that's just the way it works. Now, in deer management, I don't have that luxury. In deer management, I have to take the deer, and as long as it's in season, it doesn't matter what size, what weight. To be honest, if it's a trophy or not, good specimen or not, in the deer management that I'm involved in, or the type of deer management that I'm involved in at the moment, then I basically have to call that deer. However, not all deer management is like that. But we'll come into that in a little bit. The second part of it to this week is I've been on lambing duties. Yes, as well as the deer management on the estate that I work, where I've seen a few Sika, but no males, so it's all been females that I've seen over the last few days. Alongside that, overnight, because can't shoot deer at night at the moment, I have been doing fox control in the lambing fields. We've got quite extensive lambing fields. Those of you who follow me on Facebook, on YouTube, will see that I got a call up on Monday night, or on Monday afternoon, in regards to a couple of lambs going missing. Now, it's very unusual for me to lose lambs to foxes. Most years I don't lose one. Odd occasional time I get one or two, and I've lost two this year. 2 this year so far, and I now bear in mind I cover a lot of farms, like 6 or 7 farms, thousands of lambs, and I speak to the farmers regularly enough, and I'm pretty proactive when it comes to it. I don't react. I usually pretty much on the ball when try to be ahead of the game before lambing, and I thought I was, but you know what thought did? And I got caught up by one dog fox. I should have known, because I took a vixen on this farm a few weeks back, about four or 5 weeks ago. I took a vixen, and she was by herself during mating season, which I kind of thought was strange, and I'm sure I saw a dog, but I thought it ended up turning out to be a badger, but it obviously wasn't. So I had this lone dog. When the farmer phoned me, kind of guessed it was going to be a dog. A lone dog that was doing damage for the sake of doing damage, just because his brain was wired like that. He has to feed cubs, but these cubs probably don't exist, because during mating season I took his mate. So I guess that the sacrifice to that, we had a couple of lambs that we lost, but I got the dog fox that night. Long night. Started off around about 10 p.m. on the Monday night, and finished off got the fox around about 4 a.m. on the Tuesday morning. So that was kind of difficult. As you can see, I'm a bit dehydrated and hoarse, mainly because I have been non-stop, morning, night, evening, whatever. So it's been pretty busy. What else have I been up to? I've been catching up on the news, seeing this thing with the deer management nature restoration orders and that. I'm seeing articles, different newspapers and whatever, and that can be quite difficult, you know. So it's been kind of trying to keep on top of that. It's been a headache. It's been a nightmare trying to keep on top of it, because it's changing every day, and the articles are changing every day. The Scottish Gamekeepers Association are adding this thing that now SNP has split up with the Greens. They have to overturn the previous minister's order in regards to these deer, the longer culling seasons for female deer, due to the health of gamekeepers and stalkers and deer managers, the mental health. In a way, I can understand that. Because to be fair, it can take its toll mentally if you're having culled deer that are heavily pregnant. Even the guys who like do it in the forestry or do contracts, like myself, who did contracts and stuff like that, we tend not to push it too long. We tend to take it to a point, and then it gets a bit much, and then so it's just something we have to deal with in the trade, though, and everybody has a distressing part of the trade when you're dealing with wildlife, and unfortunately, the Scottish government say, well, we don't care, we just need them culled. On the other hand, an article today, again in the Scotsman, that really got me miffed and angry. I am really, really angry at my community over this. Now, raptor persecution has been illegal for a long time. It really has. And there's no excuse for it. There really is no excuse for it. It's annoying. Now, an introduced female, young, juvenile eagle to the borders, I think her name was Merrick. She was introduced a couple of years ago. She'd been on track. Last year, they found remains of, her tracker stopped working. Our tracker stopped working. And what happened, went to investigate it. They found blood at the scene. They found eagle feathers at the scene. And an investigation started. Now, the investigation started, and Police Scotland have now determined that it's not just a possibility, but they believe, almost 100%, that juvenile eagle has been shot and killed, probably by somebody who legally owns a firearm. Now, I'm sorry, right? I grew up in the States and stuff like that when I was younger. And yes, badger persecution and raptor persecution was quite common. And for the most part, quite a lot of it was done. And I remember it being, well, it's been illegal for a long, long time. And it was just common practice for gamekeepers, farmers, and land managers to be involved in that sort of thing. And I've never been personally involved in it myself, but like I've never shot a badger. And it's ridiculous. It's still going on when there's other things. There's other ways of doing management. You know, there's big estates that have never had a history of raptor persecution who have got great grouse numbers, for instance. Here's where my big problem is. And I guess somebody has to say this, right? You have the likes of Scottish Land and Estates, Scottish Gamekeepers Association, and various other organisations who are out there in the limelight, sticking up for shooters' rights, sticking up for the field sports community, keeping alive the trade. And then you have individuals who, for some mental reason, decides that it is okay for them to shoot an eagle. It's them who think it's okay to shoot a hen harrier or a peregrine or any kind of raptor or any illegal species because it suits them at that time and that point in time, and nobody's going to know. Now, I'm going to tell you a thing or two about ethics. Being ethical is not something that you expect people to expect from you. Being ethical is something that you expect you to be for you. When nobody is around you, when nobody can see you, that is when you need to be the most ethical within yourself. To turn your rifle or shotgun towards a very large bird that you cannot tell the difference for, and turn round and squeeze that trigger and blow it out the tree, then I don't understand you. I can't understand you. I just physically can't understand you. You cannot say that the Scottish government and the police and everybody else is against you, against your community, against everything that you believe in, against hunting, against the future of hunting, against gun ownership. And then you still have the audacity to turn around and point your muzzle towards a golden eagle or a peregrine or something that you shouldn't be turning your muzzle to. I'm sorry, you got to work this out for yourselves. I always said, and I fell out with lots of people in regards to this, I always said that we are our own worst enemy when it comes to this community. We are our own worst enemy. Stalkers hate stalkers. Stalkers are selfish. They can be, they're very private. Gamekeepers, not all gamekeepers, this is the problem. It's not all gamekeepers. It's one or two who are just like, oh, I'll go through and that thing's eating my pheasants. I'm going to shoot it. Well, I bet you've got 10 foxes running around your ground. And that's what's eating your pheasants and not the bird of prey that's above it. I kid you not. Yeah, and the utter stupidity. These things are tracked. Yes, there's mistakes. There's trackers fall off and things like that. But see when a tracker is completely turned off after it's been working perfectly good for months, and suddenly it turns off out of nowhere and there's blood found on the ground in the last place it was seen. That, I'll tell you one thing, the tracker should have been found on the ground where the last place it was seen and still turned on. If it had fallen off, then whoever could have been tracking it could have found the tracker and went, oh, oops, the tracker's fallen off. We should have put it on better the next time. But no. You're walking through the wood, you see a big bird and you shot at it. You realise it was an eagle, and then you've put it in your car and you've taken it to another location because you're afraid that you've turned the tracker off, or you broke the tracker, or whatever. Accidents happen. Yes, accidents happen. But if you're pointing towards a big bird that doesn't look like a crow or a pigeon, and suddenly you shoot an eagle, then you need your eyes tested. I'm not going to go into this, but you can't fight. Political battles are fought on different fronts, and you can't show a higher ethics of morality and complain about mental health issues and stuff like that on one hand, and say, oh, I can't shoot deer who are pregnant and stuff like that on one hand, but then quite happily shoot something that you're not even supposed to be shooting on the other hand. It shows a level of hypocrisy that you cannot. Anyway, enough of my thoughts on that one, because it just tears into the podcast and it makes me more and more upset when I think about it. I've been getting, for deer management side of things, I've had a lot of grief over the years. Mainly because I've been involved with organisations that have shot a heck of a lot of deer. And up until recently, and still in many walks of the deer management sector, whether it's stalkers, gamekeepers, or deer managers or whatever, what I do goes against the grain. In many years I've been called a deer murderer and all sorts of stuff. Now the Scottish Government is asking, probably will start enforcing with deer management nature restoration orders. Now, failure to do these, as highlighted recently, it's come to light that it could be a 40 grand fine and 3 years in jail, I think it is, or both, if you fail to do these or fail to make these cull orders. Now, I think this has been kicked out of proportion a little bit, because the way the law stands, there's one thing of failing to make a cull order, and there's another of refusing to make a cull order. Failing to make a cull order means that you've been proactive enough to try and make that cull order. If it's on specific grounds and you've got reasonable reasons why you have not been able to make that cull order, then I'm sure you won't get a £40,000 fine or three years in jail, or both. If you refuse to make that cull order for personal financial gain or for herd management, then I can see that will be enforced. Now, one of the things I have to say, there is different forms of deer management, and the Scottish Government haven't really looked into that. And as said before, I'm not completely for deer management nature restoration orders. In fact, to be fair, I'm part of a small group of people that are probably comply with that quite easily, and it's not actually going to affect me whatsoever. However, there is different forms of deer management. For the sporting estates, it's herd management. They want to take out, they're not really keen on taking out spikers or young beasts or even healthy beasts. Most of the time they'll want, when they're talking about stags, they'll probably take out switches and deer that are starting to go back or getting older or unhealthier looking deers or malforms or whatever, and then they'll probably concentrate more on their hinds, maybe take out some of the older hinds, yield hinds, and various other types like that, you know. Now that's for numbers management. That's not numbers management, that's herd management. That's to get the best looking herd or the best profitable herd you can for sporting reasons. Not necessarily for meat either, because some of those big deer are not particularly good eating, you know. It's like anybody has eaten a stag in the rut, or eaten a stag after it's been in the rut, can always find out that you'll feel it's really gamey and it's not the best time to actually eat the deer. If you're shooting for meat early in the summer, midsummer, yeah, after a good spring, that is when you want to get the prime red meat. You know, that's where it's at its best. Tastes better. You know, it's hinds. Well, again, in the wintertime they do gain a lot of fat, so sometimes January is probably the best time to shoot hinds for meat and stuff like that. But I'm going to be honest, I think days of that kind of management are over. Now, I get a lot of questions. Well, what about deer fences? Now, deer fences are okay. They don't always stop the deer from coming out, but what they do, coming into a replant or a plantation or onto your estate. What they do is when the deer do come in, the deer gets trapped in there and they've got nowhere to go. So then you have to go in and cull the deer. And then if you're out of season, then your plantation's wrecked and it's an absolute minefield. A lot of organisations are moving away from deer fencing. They are moving towards culls and mainly looking at culls. Deer fence is also expensive. And it's only got a 3-year lifespan. The fencers will tell you themselves. The materials cost a heck of a lot. You're talking lots and lots of money. The posts themselves are only guaranteed up to 3 years. So every 3 years you're going to have to renew fencing. Then you've got fence damage repair. You've got bad weather, wet weather. All that causes problems to your fencing and the deterioration of your fencing. It's a constant job to maintain fences. Ask any farmer. Oh my God. Ask any farmer in regards to fencing. It is constant. And to be a good farmer, you have to be a good fencer. And this is a problem. You get a lot of people that have got these ideas as, oh, why don't you just fence these areas? It doesn't work. The fences don't work. I've went round loads. And by the way, fencing is inhumane as well in many ways. Ask any keeper who goes round in the spring and looks at all the dead calves that are along the fence lines after lambing snow or whatever. You know, these animals trying to get into a wood for shelter, and they're hung up on fences, or they're using fences as false shelters, because that's what they are. They can be as a false shelter in bad weather, and they're using that, and then suddenly they're just passing away due to exposure. And fences can be detrimental to deer in many ways, but also could be detrimental to property as well, because it doesn't matter how much fencing you've got around your property. Once you have got the deer in there, and if you've got thick plantations starting in there, young trees, it's going to be mega hard to get them out. So it's a full-time job. Deer management is a full-time job. And a lot of people just don't understand that if they're not in the trade. You've got deer counts, and drones are good. The new systems are using thermal drones and that. They're very good, but that only gives you a fraction of what you can actually see. In many ways, sometimes if you've got large open areas, yeah, that'll be great. You can see a lot. But if you've got overgrown hillside and terrain that just cannot be counted, then drones, even fancy technology, is hard. You know, it's a difficult one. But yet, the interpretation of deer management has changed over the years. It's no longer about creating a perfect stag or your royals or your imperials or whatever you want to call them. It's now genuinely about numbers. It's a numbers game. And until Scottish and English government, because we're not just talking the Scottish government here, until we get the numbers down, it can be very, very difficult to actually have an argument against large culls. Anyway, I bored you enough. It's been a good night. I'm actually got some good news. I have kind of struck a deal with one of the local gun shops, and I'm going to be doing some reviews for them, which is quite good. I think I've got a night vision product on its way, and I am going to look forward to that. And as always, anything you want me to talk about, anything you want me to research, anything you want me to review, just put it down in the comments. Let me know what you want, because to be honest, I'm always looking for content. And that's the reason why I'm going to do a lot more reviews through my podcast as well. I've been reviewing the Arkin Optics, and I'm still enjoying working with that. It's been fantastic. It's very good. The rangefinder is very good. It's got built-in bullet drop and stuff like that. It's giving you something that you would have paid a fortune for. It's giving you the same accuracy as a Swarovski DS2 with the bullet drop information and all that. It's easier to work than a Swarovski DS2. You know, it's easier to work than a Burris Eliminator or any of those other ones that had built-in rangefinders with bullet drop capabilities. It gives you night vision and day vision. It gives you clarity that is unbelievable. There's a lot of stuff coming out of China right now that you'll be very surprised about. And I to be honest, this is what we're going to talk about next week. But I think Pulsar and people like that are going to have a worry. And the dayscope market has dropped on its backside. The dayscope market, I have no idea what's going to happen there. I reckon the likes of Zeiss and Swarovski and various other people, well, they're going to have to really either think about the pricing structure or think about what extra to give to the market. Because genuinely, the future isn't as clear as glass. That's true. Clear glass is not going to be the future. Digital is going to be the future. But anyway, we'll talk more about that next week. Thank you for listening to my ramblings this week. And I will let you go. And safe hunting. Stay safe. And good night.